Hey guys, I can understand this is probably not a format that you would normally see, but as you might have seen with the dual upload here, I am with a special guest today on my channel, Mr. Ken Cole. Ken, welcome in. I appreciate you stopping by the dojo today.
Thank you, Stryfe. It's an absolute pleasure to be here discussing Cobra Kai and Karate Kid with you.
I can personally say I'm a huge fan of your analysis content as well, especially you being Big T's right-hand man when it comes to all things Cobra Kai, especially with Karate Kid Part 3. And of course, your wonderful video on both Sato and Mike Barnes. So I'm very excited to discuss what we thought about season 4, maybe some plot holes, theory that you had brought up. So I guess what we could kind of get started was with Daniel doing everything that he could in the tournament. What do you think Mr. Miyagi would have thought of, like, coming down to everything on a dojo versus dojo basis of like loser leaves town with the All Valley in season 4?
I know. Oh my gosh, that's such a great question because, as we know, towards the end of the season, Daniel comes to the realization that Mr. Miyagi had his lesson about you're going to be doing it my way, but then someday you're going to do your own way, like a bonsai tree. And so he comes to that realization at the end of the tournament, but it made me think, like, would Mr. Miyagi have been okay with kind of the deals that Daniel struck, the way he's kind of used the students as a way to kind of fight his battles with Kreese and Cobra Kai? What would Mr. Miyagi have recommended or counseled Daniel to do in this situation? As we know, Mr. Miyagi has all this background, not only fighting during his childhood, as you mentioned, but also fighting in the war. He's seen really how ugly people can get, and probably not only the way to fight, but the way to avoid fighting. And so would he be okay with Daniel using the students and for basically coming to these agreements? Did Daniel aggravate the situation by coming to a deal? Or did he aggravate the situation by even putting his students into the tournament? Because we know in Karate Kid 3 that Mr. Miyagi didn't want Daniel to compete for a trophy at all. He'd prefer that Daniel not compete in tournaments. It's just the martial arts would be something that you would use just for, your own defense, to defend your honor, defend your life, and to learn the lessons of how you should live. I know we talked about how Robby entered the All Valley tournament in season 1, but would Miyagi have wanted Daniel to enter Robby or have Daniel's student compete in the All Valley tournament? I don't know. What do you think, Stryfe?
It's a very interesting point, and it's something that doesn't get brought up a lot, especially with what Mr. Miyagi would think of what's going on today. Because if you think about it, Karate Kid 1, Mr. Miyagi only agreed to the tournament so the Cobras would leave Daniel alone. Karate Kid Part 3, it was only until that Terry Silver revealed himself, and of course, Mike Barnes bullying and then Kreese also stepping into it, that Miyagi said, okay, we're going to put a stop to this once and for all. That's where he let the fight happen. Like in Karate Kid Part 2, obviously there was no tournament. It wasn't about points. It was about life and death. It's hard to say because if you think about it, and Ralph Macchio himself has obviously stated that Daniel was definitely the aggressor from Johnny's point of view in season 1 and season 2. If Johnny was opening up Cobra Kai, I don't think Miyagi would have first said, hey, stop, walked in like Daniel did to do what he was doing. Obviously there's complex reasons of why Daniel reacted the way he did, but on the subject of Miyagi, I don't know if he would have just stepped in and kind of intervened. As you said, like with what's going on, there might not even have been a tournament or at least a tournament fight of like Miguel versus Robby in season 1. Also, too, it's very interesting to see what Miyagi would have been like, especially with Terry Silver coming back in the picture and how that would have played out for Kreese. I can almost imagine Mr. Miyagi going down like, you did what? Like,
Right.
agreeing to the tournament and stuff. So, yeah, that's very interesting.
Well, and you bring up a really good point, because what if Robby didn't compete in that first season All Valley tournament? And what if Daniel had just left it all alone? Would we be saved all of this turmoil, do you think?
I would say at least a majority of it. A majority of it would have definitely been avoided, especially because my friend Tyler had brought up a really good point that, like, if Johnny did join Miyagi though after Karate Kid 1 at the end of the tournament, Miyagi would have told Johnny to be there for his son. That would have obviously avoided a lot of conflict between Johnny and Daniel.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of it would be avoided, especially with Miyagi still being around. And as Daniel has kind of told in like some backstory and through dialogue and everything, we also know that even though Mr. Miyagi was old, even before he got sick, he was still a top-notch fighter. There was a kick that only he and Robby could do compared to like with Daniel. So it'd be very interesting. Speaking of Robby, one of the things that had always bugged me, and I've always wanted to make a video on, it was just something that not a lot of people, I feel like not a lot of people talked about. Why did Robby enter the tournament? Obviously, so we know he wants to get back at his dad. That's why he joins Miyagi-Do, and also starts to work for Daniel at LaRusso Auto. until they form an authentic connection, and then where, he actually starts to look up to Daniel. Why would he want to enter the All Valley unless Daniel specifically told him, like, off screen, like, hey, yeah, I had this guy that he's joining, like, he's competing this team in the All Valley and whatnot. So for all we know, the All Valley wasn't even really discussed until episode 7, and even then that's like maybe 2 or 3 months away, depending on when the timeline takes place. So what are your thoughts?
That's a really good question, and I think it gets down to that sort of mysterious question about Robby. It's like, what does he want? And it kind of goes through all these, the series, like, what does Robby want? And is it a relationship with his father? Is that what he wants? And I'm wondering if maybe it was that scene, in season 1 where he goes and he sees Johnny and Miguel, and he was giving Miguel the gi, and he was going to talk to him, but then he turns away, and walks away. And maybe he's trying to prove himself. Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of ambiguous. And it's a great question. Kind of, as we said, Mr. Miyagi probably would have said, you don't need to compete in a tournament. You don't need to do that. That's not what this is about. So that's the best guess I can give, is that he wants to gain the respect. He somehow wants to gain his father's respect, and he wants that relationship that he sees between his father and Miguel, and he's just going to try to force it or prove himself and get his father's attention. That's my best guess. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, because, unlike Daniel, Robby didn't really have a reason. I highly doubt that he just immediately wanted to join the tournament because Sam said, good luck at the tournament, and this was after Miguel pushed him down.
Right.
I don't see Robby going to that length, or at least up into his character up until that point. Obviously, season 3 and 4 is a different story because his character's progressed in a different direction. But in season 1, he was actually finding that balance for the most part in his life. He wasn't being picked on by Cobra Kai. So it wasn't a complete parallel of Karate Kid 1 Daniel and then season 1 Robby. That's the one thing that just kind of eludes me too. And maybe it was in some kind of deleted scene where it was filmed, like why he decided to enter the tournament, and then that had just never seen the light of day. So I don't know. It's just a very interesting point. Yeah, that's always bugged me. So speaking of tournaments, of course, the one thing I do want to talk about is, well, a couple different things. Obviously, so we saw at the end of season 4 was Silver paying the ref. And that was like the only way Cobra Kai necessarily won in the tournament. So one thing that does come to mind is when you think about it, so the ref obviously made some very questionable calls that were called out by Johnny and then some other people in the crowd. So one of them that I want to discuss first is when Tory is fighting Devon, she actually hits Devon while she's out of bounds. But when Sam does that later on, even though Sam hits Tory before she even jumps out of bounds, the ref says at no point. So with that being said, we know technically Tory only landed 2 points on Devon. So if they somehow revise the tournament or go back and undo the decision, I would think Devon still qualifies as a finalist, or at least advancing past the quarterfinals if she's only won by, only lost 2 points. What do you think?
I think that's totally possible. It's kind of interesting, like, how Silver, when he talks to the ref at the end, he basically says, for a second, I thought that you had backed out of our deal, but no, you played it perfectly. Like, no one suspected anything. And it's almost like the ref really was very picky about how he, chose to do a bad call. And that was one of those cases, versus Devon. And so I don't know if the ref could tell that maybe Devon could be a threat, or, it was just a perfect opportunity to kind of throw one towards Cobra Kai. But yeah, it looked like Devon was doing really well. I'm trying to think, you mentioned we only saw 2 points from Tory, right, on Devon. I think that's totally possible. And she certainly had the fire to. She's like, oh, I'm going to be back next year. Like, this was only, 6 weeks of training. I'm going to be back. I'm going to take everyone down. So I think she definitely had the attitude to do it. And the fact that she kept up with Tory, I think really speaks well of her as a fighter. And yeah, that's an interesting possibility if they like revised it or they found that this ref did this. The only thing is, I don't know how they could maybe pinpoint like where the ref was throwing it, necessarily. If he was really, really careful, maybe they could on this. I don't know if they do like video replays or anything like that, but he might have been so picky on where he threw the calls that they may never be able to determine that, Devon should be better, or there's an asterisk versus everyone. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that could happen?
Well, I do know, and the reason I say it's 2 points, obviously, so we saw her score 2 points back to back.
Right.
But we know this was all in the quarterfinals, and within that same, and I could be wrong, but within that same bracket, it was also Hawk versus Kyler, which, Hawk 3 clean points and won. And it was also Robby versus Kenny, and again, it was 1-3. And then we know the next semifinals, which was supposed to be Eli versus Miguel, but that didn't happen. And then it was also Dimitri versus Robby. So we all know that that bracket was at least 3 points and you're out.
Right.
And we only saw the 2 points scored. So if they somehow like negate Tory's win, they would have to either maybe refight that match, because really Tory's only won by 2 points. She didn't win by 3. Yeah, it's 3 and you're out, not 2 and you're out.
Right.
That's what's very interesting. And also the fact that the match between Sam and Tory, and Sam's point should have landed, because the impact is what caused her to jump out, not that she jumped out and then got hit.
Right.
At that point, it would have been it would have been 2-3 instead of 2-2. Another thing too I just thought about was, as we were talking about the ref favoring and whatnot, did Silver think that maybe Tory needed that bias whatsoever? Obviously the ref favored Tory in both the Devon fight and the Sam fight. Robby was that good that he didn't need that bias. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my guess is, I could be wrong, but my guess is that when Terry Silver paid off the ref or made the offer to the ref, he basically said, I need you to guarantee that Cobra Kai is the victor here. I think Terry's probably concerned about launching his chain of Cobra Kai dojos. He doesn't want 1985 to happen again. And so I would think the decision on maybe favoring certain athletes might be the ref, because it seemed like the ref was really using his judgment very carefully on how he's going to make it look like he's still a legitimate referee, but help Cobra Kai. So I think it might have been the ref that made the determination about Tory, that maybe from watching these fighters, that either there was an opportunity to call it in favor of Tory that he saw, or that he needed to do it. And maybe he felt like he needed to do it with Tory because Robby lost. Because Cobra Kai only needed one win in order to win the whole thing. So if Robby won, he wouldn't need to throw it in favor of Tory, over Sam. But because Robby lost, he needed to do it. So maybe he escalated the bad calls in that final fight because he knew that had to be for Cobra Kai.
Right. I mean, that's a very good point, too, because I would imagine, too, especially going to sudden death overtime, if he would have made a bad call, that would have obviously backfired on him, and, the crowd would have definitely thrown the fit. And it was very interesting to see that during, straight down the middle, he did call it in the Robby and Eli fight. One of the things I pointed out I used either my Eli or Robby video, is that he actually even did the same elbow strike that, Johnny did to Daniel in Karate Kid 1 before the crane kick. And I would imagine, too, that maybe he was just that good of using his judgment of, as you said, picking on where to throw the points here and there. And also, Tory also should have got a point deduction, especially with, the
Yes.
face strike, because that would have really made the score 3-1 instead of, 3-2. Obviously counting that the point that should have gone to Sam's favor. So
Right.
The tournament was very interesting, and I think it probably should have only ended that way, that Silver basically barely got by. And obviously now Tory being conflicted over wanting to win the right way. Kind of like similar to Johnny at the end of Karate Kid 1, where he learned the difference between mercy and honor. What are your thoughts on Tory and Silver's interaction next season?
That's interesting, because I'll be honest, I loved season 4. I think the main thing that, I don't know if it's a knock against season 4, is that I just wanted more. It's especially relationships. I really wish we could have seen the Terry Silver relationship a bit more, because he gave her money obviously for the prom, and but that was kind of all off screen. We didn't really get to see them interact. So I don't know how close she feels to Silver, how much of a betrayal that is. Obviously for her personally, it's a betrayal, because she didn't really win, and she knows that, and I'm sure that's going to be a problem. But aside from that, I'm not sure how close they are. I don't know how much of a mentor Terry Silver is to Tory. So I think at the minimum, she might feel a lot more loyalty towards John Kreese. They've had a lot of scenes together. He looked out for her, and I wouldn't be surprised if Tory goes to prison to visit with John Kreese, and maybe he kind of uses Tory as his eyes and ears as to what's going on with Terry Silver and what's going on outside of prison. But I'm wondering if he will kind of manipulate Tory to sort of look at what Terry's doing, and also maybe give her advice on how to deal with Terry, because she might be upset at what Terry did, and she might feel betrayed. So I'm thinking there could be, the Tory might be the go-between between John Kreese and Terry Silver going forward. I think she's going to have a very important role on Terry's hold over Cobra Kai. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't even thought about the eyes and ears. I mean, that's a really good point because, one of the things I did mention in my Kreese video is that Tory is going to somehow be a key, obviously in season 4. We just don't know how directly can she help Kreese's situation. It's just going to be very interesting to see because you have two students. You have Tory that knows she didn't win the right way, and she openly admitted in episode 8 prom that she wanted to win something for once that was just hers. And obviously that means a great deal to her. And then, of course, you have Stingray, who wanted to be in Cobra Kai so bad that he was willing to get beaten up and put in the hospital and, to throw John Kreese under the bus. So you have those two unlikely characters to be the key to either John Kreese's redemption or John Kreese being able to get out of his situation. I don't know how exactly she's going to help him out, but like you said, that was probably a really good point of maybe in the eyes and ears and, visiting John Kreese. And that could also get Tory into trouble if she happens to be tailed by Silver one day.
Right.
As we all know, Silver doesn't mind getting his hands dirty. Yeah, it'll be definitely interesting to see.
It will be an interesting moment, I think, when or if Terry Silver learns that Tory saw that. Because with that, she would have the power to take down Cobra Kai. Maybe not like, obviously, Terry Silver, the rich guy, but at least Cobra Kai, the winner, the image of Cobra Kai, she could really take that down. Like, that's very, very important information that could be weaponized. So if Terry learns that she saw that, it'd be interesting to see how he reacts. Like, is he going to try to bring her in, kind of into his arms more? Or is he going to threaten her? Or, I don't know. It'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Is there any other thoughts that you might want to discuss? Maybe some plot holes you think of either, any of the seasons or any overall thoughts of season 4, or maybe anything that you're looking forward to seeing in Cobra Kai in the future?
It's so much. Like, they managed to fit so much into that running time. And I think for me, I wish the show was an hour-long episode show. I think it could easily support it. I really wish there was more. I always want more Terry Silver. I love Terry Silver, right? But I love all the stuff with all the characters. I wish there was more. We got to see more of Terry Silver with Robby and Tory. That scene with Robby was just amazing. I loved it with Terry Silver and Robby, after Robby was teaching Kenny. It was just so perfect. It was great. I'd love to see Terry Silver more one-on-one with students and getting in their heads and things like that. The big thing I noticed was in season 1, the big challenge for Johnny was getting into the All Valley tournament. The committee didn't want to let him in because it was permanently banned due to the unethical behavior of John Kreese, Terry Silver, and Mike Barnes. And so going into this, I thought, well, that's going to be something. That's going to be a hurdle. We're going to have to see, how John Kreese and Terry Silver were able to jump over that hurdle, but they really didn't address it. So I don't know if that was like a deleted scene. I don't know if Terry took care of it behind the scenes, paid someone off. I'm not sure, but that was kind of muted, kind of absent. So I don't know how they wrangled that. I think that all that stuff, hopefully with Terry Silver and Cobra Kai and the relationship with the students, that's what I'm looking forward to with season 5. I'm hoping that maybe they didn't have time to do it in season 4, but they're really going to start to get into it in season 5. And I'm hoping that Terry's going to be around past season 5 as well. So I'm hoping we get a full season where we see Cobra Kai at its full glory, like where it is super successful. It's a force to be reckoned with. And that Terry Silver's on top of the world. Personally, just being a fan of Terry Silver, I just want to see him just on top of the world, having accomplished everything, his deceptive mind wanted to do. So I don't know. Those are some of my things. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. And I thought that was also going to get addressed in season 4 as well. It's just that, okay, we'll allow Cobra Kai, this incarnation of Cobra Kai that has nothing to do with Terry Silver, we'll let him in and let him slide. But now that John Kreese and Terry Silver took over Cobra Kai again, I'm surprised that somehow didn't get addressed. And maybe, as you said, it will in season 5.
Right.
Because, the main thing, too, is that, they were all unethical actions. And if Terry gets outed, then he's definitely going to be, banned forever. So it's very interesting how that didn't. And maybe one of the ways of them kind of subtly explaining it is just because since Daniel was now a competing sensei, ahead of time, that's why he wasn't be able to be on the board. And that's also why he wasn't in that scene, that scene 2, as we saw in the trailer. And a lot of people think, well, he was in season 1. Yeah, but it was a last-minute coach in the finals when, the tournament had already happened. So hopefully that will kind of get addressed in the future, too. And especially if Mike Barnes comes back,
Yes.
that would also like keep him out of the tournament if there is another one. So
Right.
So yeah, it'd definitely be interesting to see.
I know, yeah, because you're right. Mike Barnes's fate is kind of tied with John Kreese and Terry Silver. They were all named specifically in the reason why Cobra Kai was banned. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that's dealt with.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see how season 5 plays out, and you know, maybe some of these things will be also addressed in that season. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to plug before we leave to go? Maybe see what Big T's up to, or you know, what the Valley's up to at this point.
Absolutely. Well, if you guys haven't been to my channel, I am Ken Cole on YouTube. You can just search Ken Cole and see, you know, some of my videos. Why Terry Silver Rocks, Mike Barnes Master Bully. I'm Kennergy Cole on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And definitely check out Cobra Cole. If you're a fan of Cobra Kai and Terry Silver, check out Cobra Cole. It has me and David Shatra, who plays Tom Cole on Cobra Kai. Get it? So definitely check that out. I think you'll enjoy it. But yeah, it's been an honor being here with you, Stryfe. It's you make such great videos, such great quality content that
thank you.
The opportunity to discuss with you this type of stuff is great.
Definitely, and maybe we'll be able to collaborate again in the future as well.
Oh, yeah.
And I can personally say that I did watch Cobra Cole, so if you guys haven't seen it yet, you should definitely check it out. It's very well done, very well made.
Thank you.
And whatnot. So, but yeah, I think that's all the time we have for now. I appreciate everybody, guys, that tuned in, and let me know what you guys think down below. What was your favorite part of our discussion? If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like it, subscribe, share it with your friends, and comment, as these all help my channel grow. Also, be sure to send Ken Cole some love and subscribe to his channel if you haven't already. Be sure to check out and subscribe to my second gaming channel. I'm trying to get this channel to YouTube partner, and supporting this channel also helps me support my main channel. Keep up with me on my socials via Instagram and Twitter. Shout out to my YouTube members, I appreciate the support. If you'd like to directly support the channel, consider becoming a member and enjoy perks such as behind the scenes updates, access to the VIP Discord, shoutouts and videos, and more. Thanks for watching, stay beautiful, stay awesome, and we'll catch you around next time.